Thank you all so much for tuning in right on time. It's amazing to see so many people and a lot of people that I've not met before. This is really cool. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Niema. Okay, I have a friend in the audience. That's great. Thank you for joining. Lena, Tony. Nice. Okay, we're gonna get started in just a few minutes. So please feel free to get settled in, grab a drink. And can everyone see my screen? Yes. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Get started in one more minute. Let people in. It's always exciting for me. It's like I was telling all our guest speakers today that we have so many people that are already waiting on the waiting in the waiting room, and they come in because they're all on time, and then you'll have all these names that I'm afraid to pronounce because you're clearly from all over the world. Really great to see everyone here. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get started now. And then Ting Ting's my assistant in the back. When you're back on, please also let other people in the waiting room back into to join our event, please. Okay. So welcome everyone. I don't know what time zone you're in, but wherever you are, thank you for tuning in to our event tonight. My name is Leslie. I am the Director of Operations at PIM. Purpose in Motion, and welcome to our very last 10th anniversary event of the year. So it's our very last one out of a series of 10. So this is a really special moment, and thank you all for being here for it to help make it really special. The event today is about creating impact, social entrepreneur and change makers toolkit for success. So I'm really excited to dive in. We have an incredible lineup of speakers. But right before we do that, I'm wondering if you guys can maybe do me a quick favor. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Zoom. So if you guys can all scroll down to the bottom of your Zoom, you should be able to see like a little icon that says reactions. Sometimes it looks like, depending on which version of Zoom you have, sometimes it looks like a little smiley face with a plus sign on it. Please click on that and then click on the applause button, please. Like a little applause. Just because me and all the speakers deserves a round of applause. Can you do that? Thanks so much, Andrea. Thanks so much, Ting Ting. Yes, Lena. Uh, Andridiata. I hope that's spelled, I pronounced that right. Innocent. Thank you. Thank you. Guys for doing that. Yes. Thank you, Niema. Amazing. And Samsung SM. Yes. Cool. Right. So you guys found the reaction buttons. Well done. And please feel free to use this throughout the course of this whole event. The nature of just online Zoom events means that it's really difficult for our speakers to see your expressions. So we don't really know for sure if our message is kind of getting to you. So if you hear something that really resonates with you, that really gets you hyped up, make sure that you send us some emojis so we know how you're feeling. Okay. Got it. And then please scroll down to the bottom too. And then there's a little icon that says chat. And if you click on that, a little chat box will pop up. And then in the chat box, can you guys type in what your favorite dessert is? We were just talking about our favorite food with all the speakers as we're preparing. So I'm kind of curious what everyone's favorite dessert is. Can you just type that all in the brownies? Like who awesome, that's my favorite too. Brownies with vanilla ice cream. That's the way to do it. Yes. And then go like chocolate. I love a little like smiley face. What else? What else does everyone else like? Vanilla ice cream. Yes. Creme brulee. Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's just that little like sugar crust at the top. Yeah. Anything chocolate, Nima. Yes. I'm not lactose intolerant, but I used to be allergic to milk. So didn't have chocolate until I was like 10 years old. And then it completely changed my life and I cannot go back now. This is really great. Awesome. Who else? Okay. Milk and nuts. Nice. Okay. Thank you guys so much. It's really great to kind of just like see what you guys like. So yeah, feel free now that you know how to use our chat room, feel free to use this too throughout our entire event. So if you have any questions for the speakers, feel free to type them in here. My assistant Ting Ting will help collect those questions and we'll use them in our Q&A at the end of the event. But also use this space to share any kind of comments or thoughts you have too in response to what our speakers have shared, right? It's a good way to just connect with each other and also to network and get to know each other because we're all fellow social entrepreneurs and change makers here and from all over the world too, as well. Okay, fantastic. Okay, all right. Now, really quickly, let me tell you a little bit about PIM. So PIM, Purpose in Motion, we're a social enterprise that empowers young people with the education, resource, and networks to become mission-driven leaders and effective change makers. So that's what our whole mission is about, is really to help support young people to make a change in the world, right? A positive change. And what's really exciting about this year is that this year is our 10th anniversary. So we've been around for 10 years. We've survived COVID. We started as a Chinese company and now we've become a global company. And just a reflection of the last 10 years. So we've now supported over 13,000 aspiring leaders in 50 programs, over 50 programs. Our programs have reached over 110 countries, both online and offline. I think as of this year, I think we've reached 117 countries. So that's always really exciting to see our map grow. And another thing that we are really proud of is that we've also raised a lot of funds. So over $850,000 to just support other startups, whether it's through investments or funding, things like that, to help them expand their impact. And in celebration of these 10 years, we also have we've launched a series of celebration events. So 10 of them this year for 10 years, and today is our very last event. So thank you guys again for all being here. Right, without further ado, let me now go right into the event and introduce our speakers really quickly. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Andrea. So she's actually the first of these speakers that I've met. I got to work with her last year. She's tuning in here from Chile, and she is a learning consultant and a leadership coach. So would you want to quickly introduce yourself, Andrea?
Sure, sorry, I was muted. Hi,
That's okay.
everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Andrea. I'm from Chile. And the last years, I've been working as a leadership coach mostly. I've tried and failed with entrepreneurship, so I have some stories to tell maybe. And I have also worked with entrepreneurs and leaders in many organizations. So I'm happy to share whatever I can. I hope I can bring something to the table today.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait for it. And Andrea is always just being modest. I can't wait to sink our teeth into our stories. Yes. Right. Okay, and then Ehab. So Ehab is an IT consultant, youth trainer, social innovator, and has done things from all over the world. So yeah, why don't you tell us a few words, Ehab?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I'm an IT consultant, as you mentioned. I've done all the journey from Palestine, originally from Palestine, now based in Germany. And I've worked quite a lot with the Europe Commission, and the program was well known called Erasmus Plus. And with Erasmus Plus, we have been part of many international projects, EU, and throughout the Arab region. And yes, I'm excited to be here today and bring some insights from my experience as entrepreneurship, but also as a person. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. I think like you can never forget that yeah, we're people in the end of the day too. So social entrepreneurship and that journey is not just a career, but it's also a life journey as well. So also look forward to learning life lessons from you too, Ehab. And last but not least, Akua. So Akua is a leadership and culture advisor at A&M and Company. Want to quickly say a few words?
Sure. I typically start off actually by spelling out my name. So it's Akua. My dad's from Ghana. He calls me Ikria. My mom is
Oh,
American. She calls me Akua. And I grew up mostly actually in Francophone West and North Africa. And I also spent about 5 years in Lagos, Nigeria. And in those places, they call me Aqua. I am not picky about it. I respond to all
wow.
variations of my name and have many nicknames as well. I have a background actually in startups. And so my first real job was launching and running an online platform. And so I have experience being a startup executive as well as someone who runs their own leadership and culture advisory. And for me, it's really important to focus on values. And I think that's a really important element for any social entrepreneur to get clear on.
Absolutely. Oh, that hit home already when you talk about values. Love it. And I think that your name is just as diverse as you are, Akua. Just the variations of pronunciations kind of in its own way kind of sums up like all the different experiences that you have. And thanks so much for sharing that. I did not know that, or I would have practiced multiple ways of calling your name too. No, okay, great. Okay, so we'll jump right in. Yes, okay. So the very first question that I have, and I think maybe a lot of other young social entrepreneurs that are joining our call today will have is, I think a lot of us start off our social entrepreneurial journey really hopeful. We really want to make a change in the world. But as you start that journey, you really realize just how difficult it may be to actually start that enterprise or to get funding, get things started. So my first question is just for first-time social entrepreneurs, it's often easy to just struggle with self-doubt and feeling incompetent or that you're not experienced enough to build a successful startup. You may be thinking that you're too young, too inexperienced, not qualified enough, to not, not competent. And so for the three of you, what is some advice you would have for these young first-time social entrepreneurs? And maybe we'll have Akua start first. You have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first and foremost, it's completely normal, natural. It's actually as a human being, having some level of self-doubt, I think is also good because I think it's typically an indicator that you want to do a good job, that you're excited about something and that you do want to make an impact on the world. So I think the key thing is to really, I guess, spend some time reflecting on, okay, this level of self-doubt, what am I willing to do to work towards it? What are some of the resources maybe I can leverage to move myself into a place where I feel like, okay, I'm making some progress. And so I think it really starts with, cultivating your awareness, right? So getting aware, right? This is something I feel. Is there something I want to do about it? Are there resources, maybe even externally of me, that I could leverage? And I think it's also really important to keep in mind that if you continue to sort of feel this doubt, it's also important to start to reflect on maybe the environment you find yourself in and the people you surround yourself as well. Because doubt internally, normal and natural. Some doubt externally, I also think is something that we tend to encounter, but is it systematic? Is it something that you're seeing over and over again? Is it the people that you maybe have started to see and potentially want to engage with? And so I think a key piece is also wrapping your awareness around, is this doubt starting internally of me, or is it something that's starting externally? And if it is starting externally, are there different people maybe you can surround yourself with? Are there other mentors and people maybe that can support you as well? But I think the long and short of it is some level of doubt is normal and natural. And my hope is that everyone has a bit of doubt and is sort of pushing themselves outside their comfort zone to learn more and to ultimately grow, because without some level of doubt, there'll be no growth.
Wow, really well said. I've never actually thought about doubt that way. I always think of doubt and doubting your own abilities as a pretty negative thing. But I love how you reframe that, Akua, that it's actually maybe like a guiding compass. It's like if you feel a certain level of doubt, it's actually healthy. It just means that you're challenging yourself out of your comfort zone and that you're growing. So I think that's a big takeaway for everyone here, that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing to embrace that. But I also love what you were saying there about maybe doing a bit of reflection. I think more often than not, especially when you've already gotten that mindset that there's a lot of self-doubt, you're feeling incompetent, you're doubting in yourself, you can spiral and you just start internalizing that. So you think it's just you think you're the problem. But oftentimes, as you said, Akua, it can be environmental. It may not be entirely you. It could just be the people that you've surrounded yourself with or the environment you're in. And maybe you're not working with really the right people. You're not surrounding yourself with the right mentors, the right support network, or even like the right resources that can really help you thrive. And all of that can make a big difference externally, internally. So those are two big key takeaways there from Akua. For sure. How about you, Andrea? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, well, same as Akua, I think it's healthy actually to have some level of self-doubt. The problem is when it paralyzes you, when you think you don't have what it takes to do things and you stop starting. And we think like self-confidence kind of grows when you feel good enough to do something and then do it, but it doesn't work that way. You do it and then you build some self-confidence because you did it, you know?
Mhm.
Even if it worked or if it didn't, you always learn something. So I would say it's okay, it's normal to have doubts, but just do it. I mean, don't overthink it. And but do reflect. I loved what Koa said about reflecting about, well, what is it that you are not confident about? Is it your technical skills? Maybe your interpersonal skills, communication skills? What is it that you don't feel strong in? Is that perception accurate or not? And then it's very helpful to search for feedback, like ask the people you work with to give you feedback. Do you have any like crucial flaw that is troubling your work?
Mhm.
And most importantly, what are your strengths? I think sometimes we don't pay enough attention to our strengths because we're all good at something, and most of this, when you deal with other people, perception plays a big role. And have you heard about the halo effect? Does it ring a
Oh,
bell?
yes.
When you meet someone, and they're good at something, your mind kind of extrapolates that, and you think that person might be good for other things, you know?
Right.
And that plays a big role on how other people perceives us. So when they I don't know, if you are good at communication, for example, Leslie, I might think you would be a good leader or you would be inspiring to some other people, my mind does that, everybody's mind does that. So when you work on your strengths, what you're doing is improving the perception in other areas as well. So don't always focus on your flaws to work on, but
Mhm.
also work on your strengths. I didn't make this up. This is by Zenger Folkman, who are very renowned investigators, and there's data backed evidence for that. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Amazing. Well, even if you made it up, Andrea, it sounds amazing.
Sounds good, right?
I buy it. I buy it. I put your name on it. The halo effect. Yes. Yes. I love what you're saying there too. I think that's part of the problem, and I have personally also gone through that when I first started my first social enterprise too, is that you can get filled with so much dread and doubt that you get paralyzed and then you don't actually move forward on it. But a lot of actually overcoming that doubt and fear is just doing it. Just it's like Nike, is it Nike that got it right? Like just do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes like taking
Good
small
slogan.
steps and actually can help
Mhm.
you build that kind of confidence. And also a great reminder that for us ourselves, it's easy and probably natural to magnify the things that we're not good at and the kind of fears that we have and the doubts and that we have, things that we're self-conscious about, but don't lose sight of what you're good at and your strength. And part of being an entrepreneur is actually knowing that you can't do everything. You cannot be the genius that is good at everything. You also have strengths and weaknesses. And it's often helpful to just focus on your strengths so that you can find someone else on your team that can help carry you in the things that you're not as good at. Right. So yeah, Ehab, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I think some of the problem I had back then when I started social work was self-doubting, standing in front of audience, and I was always asking for feedback. How did I did? How was my workshop? And self-doubting was always sometimes the opposite of it, confidence. But recently, in the last year, I discovered something called confidence matrix. So
Mm,
self-doubt isn't necessarily negative, but I like to break down things. And last 2 years, I discovered something called confidence matrix. So if you visualize it, you have the x-axis, which represent your abilities, and y-axis, which represents feeling capable. So that's your feeling. If you have a y-axis and x-axis, then you have a four quadrant. And here comes the point of awareness. where you find yourself in this quadrant can make a huge difference. So understanding the relationship between your ability, actual ability, and how do you feel about your ability, that can make a huge difference and raise your awareness about your ability. So I give you an example. If you're preparing for a presentation at university or somewhere else, and you think you have the capability, you feel you have the capability, and you have the ability to do this, then you are acting from a confidence place. You are, you can sing and you have a good voice. In another side, there's some people, they are good at writing but they don't write. They are good, they have a beautiful voice but they don't sing. And that's comes from, they have the ability, we know they have the ability, but they don't feel they are capable of doing this. And that's, we call it, in regard to confidence matrix, self-doubting. So it comes, we know you have the ability but you don't act upon this ability, you don't feel you have the ability. And one of the maybe huge problem, I mean, there's many people, they have this an experience left out in one or many times. And one of the reasons is the comparison. And that's a topic we can talk about maybe throughout this discussion. But comparison, and I'm talking about the unfair, injustice comparison, which is comparing yourself with others or comparing
Mm,
yourself with your past. And there
mm.
is, we can go through this also, what is injustice and fair comparison. Yes.
Right. No, those are really helpful. I love how you guys are bringing up all those like scientific data or frameworks too. We have the confidence matrix and then we have the halo effect here. And ultimately this like confidence matrix, I think really ties into what Akua was saying. It's just like self-awareness. But you can actually map it out. So you can figure out exactly where you are on this quadrant. And then so maybe a little more systematic way to figure out where and how to guide yourself so that you can feel better, but you can ultimately like make more of an impact. And another element that you brought up, Ehab, I think was really great. It's just about comparing yourself. I think a lot of the doubt does stem from comparing yourself to other people, maybe to your past self and all of that. But it's all part of the learning process and not to be too harsh on yourself, to understand that especially an entrepreneurial journey is a journey of learning and failing, that you cannot ride the waves forever and be successful with everything, otherwise you don't learn. So you have to love yourself in that process and journey too, and be fair of how you're comparing yourself to what kind of successes that you would want and like to have, right? Oh man, I'm already so inspired, and that's just the first question, guys. Thank you so much. That then kind of leads me to my next question. It's just about challenges of adjusting to being an entrepreneur. So I'm gonna actually speak from personal experience. So right after out of college, I started my very first social enterprise. It was an innovative exchange program between the U.S. and China. Obviously started with a lot of hope and a lot of positivity. I really felt like there was a need here, and I was putting everything behind it to make it work. I actually found that adjustment from graduating, starting to join the workforce and becoming an entrepreneur, that transition to be extremely difficult. And I think one of the biggest things for me is that I think most of our education system around the world is still very rigid. So we're kind of told that there are exact answers for everything. Or as long as you complete an assignment and you meet the requirements, you deserve a good score. And one of the hardest things for me to learn is that it's not like that, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Like you can identify a problem, you can put in 10 times the amount of effort and time to then realize that you've gone in the wrong direction and that your solution has failed. There are no objective answers to what you're looking for, and there's not a simple like checklist of tasks like, oh, I founded a team, I registered a company, I interviewed these people, that you're then suddenly promised success and that you should be able to be paid for that, right? And there's no guarantee that you can get a paycheck either from all of this. So maybe I just want to ask like the three of you, what was kind of your entrepreneurial journey like? And then what advice do you have for budding entrepreneurs that are also adjusting to becoming an entrepreneur? Um, yeah, why don't you go first this time?
Yes, of course. Thank you. I mean, it's a great question. From my personal experience, if we talk about the school and if we talk about the system, um, or having a mind of entrepreneur, um, I experienced it from first hand. I mean, I remember days in a school times where we couldn't enter the school class because as someone, me living under occupation, you go to school with a plan that you will attend to the classes and go back home. But sometimes that doesn't happen. You have sometimes um, schools closed because of attacks from the settler. Living under occupation, as my Palestinian peers, can make school system even the easiest thing. Reaching out to school is hard, and sometimes we have to adapt to the situation. That means we collect. I mean, we talk about school. We collect group of people and we switch to the other place to continue our classes. But not that's when it's come to school, and that give us and me flexibility within our education system. So even the education system can be rigid, but our teacher, I remember that time, they give a room for experimenting. They give a room to make a mistakes, and they give a room also to test. So we do the curriculum, we do our tasks, we do homework, but in the culture I grew up, there is another life started after school, which is farming, helping your community, building a wall around the school, or you learn a handicraft. So there is a next, or there is another life starts after school, and the society embrace you learning handcraft, embrace also learning new skills that will help you together with your, so you educate yourself, you go to school, and that's clear call. Go to school, do your homework, but also you have, at least in my culture, we have a teacher, they open space for experimenting. And myself, I've learned handicraft, I learned how to build houses. And with this, you have 3 summer holidays. I can work during the summer holidays to build houses with my parents or my uncle. I earn money and I go and visit English classes because I want to improve my English.
Sorry,
Because there is no English
you frozen? Is it just me?
teacher. Yeah, I still hear you. And yeah, now it's frozen. Yeah, I think we're back.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So,
Fantastic.
so that's, I was saying my last sentence was learning handicraft, was working, and also was studying in the same time.
Right.
And I think adapting to the environment I was living in, dear to the occupation, was also
Mhm.
other many other reasons, helps me also to, how to say, to master this mindset when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Right. No, thank you so much for sharing all that too. And that's really inspiring, kind of your own journey and how you've grown up, and the place that you've grown up that helps shape you as an entrepreneur. I think that is also a reminder for everyone too, as what you have said earlier, that it's also about life skills. Like being a social entrepreneur is not just a career, it's actually more like a lifestyle. It's about how you live your life as a person. And that you'll be surprised by how a lot of the challenges that you probably have had in your life outside of your work, that those values that you have learned at those moments will come in handy to help support you in being an entrepreneur. So in this case, is being flexible, learning to be adaptable, learning to give back to your community even if you feel like you don't have a lot to give back. And those things can help make your transition to being an entrepreneur a little bit smoother, right? Okay, well, I'll hand it over to Akua then. Can you share a little bit of maybe about your own entrepreneurial journey, or if you have any advice for for entrepreneurs as they adjust to becoming an entrepreneur?
Sure. I would say, the person that comes to mind, that even as a child, I was always creating things, and was involved in things, usually, creating little cards or some sort of handicrafts that would be sold for fundraising related activities. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about making a lot of money. It mostly was about like, how can I have an impact? How can I support, these communities I'm a part of, or communities I feel need to be supported. And so that's something I did prior to having the opportunity to launch, I guess, an online business or an online platform. As an adult, I randomly stumbled into the opportunity to launch an online platform. And I will say it was also a little different because I was paid. So I was technically an employee, but the entrepreneurial part of it was the fact that we didn't know how we were going to monetize it, and that, I was building it from scratch. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't my money. But even though it wasn't my idea and it wasn't my money, having money doesn't solve all your problems, and having money doesn't mean that you have product market fit, and having money doesn't mean you're going to be able to find people who are willing to invest in your product or your service over a long period of time. And so as you think about, your entrepreneurial journey, and as you think about becoming an entrepreneur, for many of you, or I would say the primary thing that people tend to focus on is money, getting fundraising, and that with fundraising, we're going to succeed. And I would actually say, as someone who supports a lot of founders now in the work that I do as a leadership and culture advisor, that a lot of times it's actually a distraction. I think that to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to truly solve a problem. And I think be really excited about being really excited about, and also open to solving that problem in different ways. And as I think about what I do now, so running my own coaching consulting practice, I very much would say I'm an entrepreneur. From other people's eyes, they might see it a bit differently because it is service-based. So it isn't necessarily scalable in a way, but it very much is an entrepreneurial approach that I take to doing my work, because I have to find product market fit with every single client I have. They have to see value in what I do and give me some financial, like something financial in exchange. So it is, incredibly entrepreneurial, and I would say quite difficult compared to what I was doing previously with having this platform. Even though it was online, it's a lot more tangible than selling coaching. It's a lot more tangible than selling training in many ways. So I would say, as I reflect on my journey, one, having money, right? So previously I had money, I was paid no matter what. Now, what I do if I don't find product market fit, I don't get paid, right? So I am in a very different place. So I would say just be really excited about solving whatever problems you're looking to solve. And so in the case of what I do now, it's very much around leadership. It's very much around helping and supporting people with culture. And making it very clear that value of what you're adding, whether it's products or intangible services. I think those key pieces are really important, and not get so caught up in fundraising, because I think it can lead you astray. And, as we think about, social entrepreneurship, you'll also potentially find a lot of potential investments or investors that maybe aren't values aligned, and that will make you stray even further. So I think really focus on, finding product market fit and really solving a problem that people are excited to pay for.
That's amazing advice, Akua. And I love how frank and honest you are about that. I think that's part of the issue too. I think often with Silicon Valley and the hype around startups is like so much of the hype and value of a startup, it ends up being like how much capital that they have raised. It's like how many series rounds that they have, how many millions that they have managed to raise. But we've kind of lost sight of like, well, how much value are you actually providing to the world? How many people's lives have you changed for the better for launching your services? I know those things are often a little bit harder to measure and to quantify, but still I think so much of our culture has been around like this money piece. And so it's I think easy for any entrepreneur that's starting off to feel like money will solve everything. All I need is to get an investor. And I'm willing to sell my soul. I'm willing to change everything around, whatever I'm about, in order to get that funding, because I feel like once I get that funding, things are going to work. And I love that you really kind of shatter that myth that even if you have the funding, even if you have someone that can that provides you with the money to get this started, does not mean it will ultimately succeed in the long run, right? And so don't lose track of what you're doing and why you're doing that. So it's about that problem, being passionate about the problem that you're trying to resolve, and be excited to figure out new ways to solve it. And I have another friend. Sometimes I talk to her about being an entrepreneur, and she says that there's so much people have really glamorized this idea of being an entrepreneur, you're your own boss and everything. But she's like, sometimes I feel like I'm really like the slave to all my clients. Like I'm the one that's slaving away, doing everything I can to solve the problems and the pain points for my clients so that they can have a better life. And that's really the kind of the underside of entrepreneurship that I don't think we really talk about. But that's really driven by the passion of trying to solve a problem and make things better for other people. So don't lose track of that. For everyone that's a budding entrepreneur, if you're already starting, that's what got you here to get you started, and just keep your eye on that. Okay, and then how about you, Andrea? Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I was just thinking about what you just said, that sometimes we want to solve every problem of our customers and we can't. We need to
Mm.
remember also what problem we're trying to solve and focus on that, because slaving away is not the way. I think it's not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah.
Well, in my personal experience, I first started trying to have an enterprise with a partner and it didn't work out. So it's very important, I think, that you surround yourself with the right people. If you're going to partner with someone, try to pick wisely. It's hard to know, because most of the times you haven't worked with the person, so you don't really know them. But be like very attentive of the signs, like if it's working, if it's not. Do you like it's I can't find the word in English, but are you a good complement? Are you yeah, have different skills and that balance each other out, or not? Are you communicating good well or not? And well, in my experience, I started being an entrepreneur after I worked for corporations for a while, and that was a big change,
Mhm.
because when you work at the corporate environment, you kind of get used to people telling you what to do, and you do what you're told, and that's fine. I mean, you can have leadership skills and ideas and everything, but in the end of the day, someone points the direction and the actions that we're going to follow. But when you are an entrepreneur, no one tells you what to do. And that can be very disorienting in very like basic things like what you do day to day, what time do you get up in the morning, what your routine is like. Because when you go to an office, you go to the office and you have work hours, When you start being an entrepreneur and maybe you start working at home, you have all these distractions. You don't know where to start. No one tells you where to start. So that can be very, very disorienting at first. And my advice would be like have a routine. I know it's hard, but try to have it. Wake up every day at the same time, do some things first in the morning, and know what times of the day you work best. Some people are better in the morning, so you can like adjust the different types of tasks that you have, like administrative, the most I don't know, automatic things you can do. Find an hour in the day that you are better suited, like in your brain, to do that. And develop discipline. That's important. Also, be very connected to your purpose. And I think that someone mentioned that earlier, that you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. Because when no one's telling you what to do and you don't know what steps to follow, if you are not sure where you're going, it's easy to get lost in the way and it's easy to lose motivation. So
Yeah.
be very aware of what your purpose is, what really moves you to do what you're doing, and hang on to that. And also, in many cases, you will fail. I mean, just be aware that failure is a part of the journey, and we can learn to fail with style, and not fail miserably and fall into the ground. But I mean, it's okay if you fall into the ground, but slowly get up and be very mindful on how you talk to yourself when you fail. I think that's very important. Don't be your worst enemy. Don't beat yourself up because of your errors, you know? Try to treat yourself kindly, treat yourself with compassion and love.
Mm.
And that will not steer you away from excellence. It will drive you to it if you know how to do it correctly. 'Cause sometimes we think like being tough with ourselves is the only way to be excellent, and it's not. That's what I would say. It changed things for me when I learned to talk to myself differently, you know, to be patient with myself, to be like give myself grace for what I'm doing. That's what the
Oh,
ideas that I have.
amazing advice. I just wish I met you earlier when I was part of my own journey. Because I did everything that you told me not to do.
Uh,
I think it was really hard to have a
we all
routine.
do. We all do. We learn along the way.
Yeah. It's like looking back, like 20-year-old Leslie, there's a lot. There's a lot. And I think treating yourself with compassion, I think that can't be understated, actually.
Mm,
And a lot of cultures, especially in Asian cultures, with the kind of parenting that we grew up with the education system we grew up with, we often feel like punishment and is the way to go. And oftentimes when you're already feeling bad, you end up beating yourself up even more because you think that's what it takes to motivate you to make a change.
mhm,
But actually, no, it can really mess up your mental health. And if anything, it kind of can remove yourself from any kind of momentum you're trying to build to restart this. And even looking at things with a different perspective, right? So yeah, do love yourself, guys. You're in it to create impact in the world. So treat yourself with compassion, and also take care of yourself along that journey as well. And then Ehab, I think you had your hand up a moment ago. Do you have something to add?
Yes, I love the topic of funding and also financial sustainability. I have a story to share today, and it's a private story that with our team, we managed to run an organization, but we thought we can do voluntary work forever, and that's lead to we couldn't continue our work. And there's something I always say: doing voluntary work is great, and you can also learn a lot. But I think you have to look for a certain kind of security funding. You have to get paid for what you do for the sake of sustainability. So imagine if a doctor working in a hospital and he didn't get paid and just work voluntary, and that will lead to, I think, well, influence his performance because he has other obligation. And that's the topic we had take us 5 years, me and my team, to learn that we thought we can survive without getting the necessary funding for our organization. But that leads in the end that the team is, yeah, everybody has obligation. They say we cannot continue to do volunteer work. We have to set a strategy to get funding. And that was one of the big mistakes we did it with my team, that we didn't find a sustainable of financing our even our community activities because it need to be financed. And that's one of the story that I recently thought a lot about. When I start a new organization, I have to ensure we have a sustainable financial funding for our work. And there is also the question of, so you mentioned also Silicon Valley, and I think it comes to go back to the point of comparison. Is the more you compare, the less satisfied you feel. I mean, today, look, we are living in excessive comparisons. Social media platforms, you could go wherever you want. LinkedIn, choose the platform you like. There's a study shows that 80% of the youngster, they they feel dissatisfied with themselves, and it's back to self-doubting due to what they say in social media. We're not evaluating the social media here, but I'm just saying comparison could lead to self-doubting again. And that's where I learned from my grandmother when she always told me, compare yourself don't compare yourself with others, but compare yourself with your past. But now there is a new way, that the confidence matrix, again back to the confidence matrix, compare yourself what you actually have right now and what you are capable of. And that is the fair comparison, which motivates you always to do more. So, because with what you have now, with the circumstances you are in right now, you could do more and do better. And Daria mentioned something I really love. This is ask a question why you are doing this. And we have different reasons to do this, but something that stand out always this internal compass. So if you have something sort of your internal compass that drive you toward your goal. So every time you have an when you do something, when you plan your day, when you make your routine, I personally go back to my internal compass, which is contain my value and my principle in life, and ask myself, okay, I have a goal that I want to help the rural area in Palestine building a school. How much does that fit with my goal, which is building a school? So today activity, the week activity, the month work, does it combined with my ultimate goal? And that's my internal compass always directing me again toward my goal. So if I lose the way, internal compass, if it's clear, if it's also driven by values and moral principles, then it will drive you, it will direct you back to the path.
Yeah, amazing. Very well said. You have. And I love how innocent in the chat box said that he nicknamed you Mr. Confidence Matrix. And I think that that's just spot on. I think you're a really great
That's funny,
spokesperson for
yeah.
this tool. Yeah, it's funny. But if there's anything, guys, as a takeaway, like definitely check out this matrix. But I also love what you're saying, Ehab, is that in healthy comparison, and in your case, you're talking about be fair in how you judge what you're capable of, what the resources you currently have, and the challenges that you're facing. I think it's really easy to try to compare yourself to someone else that's really successful, completely different circumstances and resources. But you really should be fair to yourself of like, where am I right now? What challenges do I have? What is it that I want to do? And how can I keep myself accountable so that I am growing every day and working towards what I want? But I'm doing it and thinking about my work in a fair way. So a lot of that is just really managing your perception of that. And so I love that. Again, I wish I had known you back in the day when I was getting started. I think you would have been a great, great, confidant, someone I could rely on whenever I beat myself up and I didn't get my project off the ground as fast as I could or something like that. You also jumped the gun a little bit, I have to say, because you jumped right into the next question I was going to ask. And it's
Oh,
about
great.
balancing social impact versus profit and sustainability. I think this is a really unique thing for social entrepreneurs. Because as opposed to kind of your more traditional entrepreneurs that you're building a business often for profit, it's really for financial gain. What makes social entrepreneurs more a really unique breed is that we care about social impact just as much as wanting to make something financially sustainable. And when I talk about social impact, I'm referring to everything with all the SDG goals. So it could be a social impact, it could be environmental protection, it could be everything around that. We care, and that's why we wanted to start an enterprise that can help make an impact. But the problem with that, and I see this with a lot of social entrepreneurs, kind of just with like in Ehab's case with people you've worked with, is that you can skew in one direction where you care so much about this that you can feel bad about charging money for your services or trying to make it sustainable, that somehow making money can taint your mission and make it dirty of and not pure what you're trying to do. So I think a lot of social entrepreneurs that I've crossed paths with end up doing a lot of like volunteer work. Like maybe they do get paid a little bit, but they're hugely undervaluing their services, and they're really going or working semi voluntarily or very like low bono for their services, and that in itself is not very sustainable either, right? So what is some advice for for entrepreneurs that kind of going through this struggle. All right, maybe Andrea, do you want to start with this?
Okay. Yeah, it was hard for me at first because I had this mindset that you mentioned that maybe it's not good to charge, or I was afraid to like put a fair price to my services, at first. But then I started working on my mindset, especially around money. I think it's a thing we need to talk about more. And we need to go back and check all the beliefs that our families passed on to us. In my case, my family was very bad at money. They didn't have like a financial culture, they didn't know how to handle their money. They didn't have much, but they also didn't know how to administer it well. So yeah, we need to think about that. What have you heard about, I don't know, people with money, rich people? What are your ideas about them? What are your ideas about people that charge for their services, like in a fair way? And why do we tend to under value our work? And especially for those people coming from a background related to maybe social work or I don't know, not numbers, not engineering or I don't know, business. Um, I think it's very important that we start first to explore our mindset around it and find ways to have a healthier mindset around money and know your numbers, don't be afraid to look at them, know and learn how to manage them. That's what is I would say as a general thing to
Yeah,
start.
and that's really good advice. And again, I think in a lot of cultures, talking about money in itself is very taboo. It's a
Yeah.
very unsavory thing to do and talk about, but actually it's very important. It is more, even though it may not be able to buy you happiness, it is something that drives kind of our daily life, and it definitely drives your enterprise and your business and the sustainability of it. So thinking about your values around money and knowing your numbers is vital for your survival and your company's survival in the long run, right? And then how about you, Akua? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what my two panelists have already sort of, spoken a bit more about, right? The importance of making sure your business is sustainable. Like, so how do you actually make money? Is it directly through the people that you're serving or you're solving a problem for? That could be one way, right? It could be maybe through grants or other competitive ways as well. But just getting really clear on it and making sure that you're able to do it, I think, in a sustainable way is really key. I also love what Andrea, shared around, wrapping your head around your relationship with money and really recognizing that a lot of times we project our own thoughts around money on others. So once again, as someone who does work as a service provider, my work is primarily, it's pretty intangible, right? I'll get a lot of people who tell me you're really expensive. And I'll be like, compared to what? Says who? Right. And so I love this idea of having like fair prices, but what is fair, right? And what does fair look like both to yourself, and then you also have to recognize those you serve, right? And those who are your customers, because your perception of fair could be really different. And that's something I found when I started my, leadership and culture consultancy. But one of the things I also made sure I did, or a key piece of building on my business, was making sure that it was primarily virtual. So though people around me maybe physically thought that my prices were unfair, were they truly unfair? From my perspective, no, but maybe they were comparing me to other service providers who tend to live in this part of the world. But, I found people, and I've been able to find people for the last 6 years that are willing to invest at the level that I've set my prices, right? And that's really thanks to being able to do things online as well. And so once again, I think this sort of brings in this importance of what is the problem you want to solve? What's the impact you want to have? And recognizing that you can't expand beyond your existing geographic location. And that's something that I had to come to terms with, because I initially, when I started my practice, wanted to provide the support I wish I had, but I wanted to do that primarily in West Africa and primarily on the African continent. But I quickly realized that based on what I thought I should get in exchange for my work, that couldn't be, the majority of my work. And so now a lot of what I do is I have clients, in other parts of the world that are willing to pay me at the rates that I want to accept. And then I do a lot of pro bono work, or I do a lot of work that's, more stipend based. And sort of having those two levels allows me to have the impact I want to have, but also be able to sustain myself, and the lifestyle that I want as well. So I think as a social entrepreneur, you also have to understand those pieces. But I think that comes from, as Andrea said, like knowing your numbers. And I think one of the things I always share when people reach out to me wanting to sort of step into the space of becoming an entrepreneur, and primarily a service-based entrepreneur, more so than having a product, I always suggest to them that they know their survival number. So what is the minimum amount of money you need to make, not what your business makes, but that you need, right? Your business needs to generate that plus, right? Because you're going to have costs within your business. So what is the survival number? What's the minimum amount of money that you need to sustain yourself? And knowing that, I think, can be very empowering, and also help you think about how you might need to set your prices. Because one thing I see, especially with a lot of service providers, and I would say this as someone who comes from working on a platform that was, of course, had that freemium model and then try to convert people, like it doesn't always work. And you have to know your market. And so giving out your services for free doesn't guarantee that you're going to get clients in the long run. And so you need to start to think about some of those pieces. So yeah, I feel like I probably said a lot, but I think it really starts with knowing that survival number. And I think that starts with potentially rethinking your relationship with money, and rethinking your relationship with how you set your prices, and maybe who you solve that problem for as well.
Right. Oh, wow. Masterclass right there. That was genius. I really love like how you broke that down for us, Akua. And obviously, I think you really emphasize it, but the survival number thing, I also can't emphasize that enough for all our fellow budding social entrepreneurs. I think that was also a mistake I made back in the day too. I think once you're a entrepreneur, especially or if you're a founder, even if you're a co-founder, somehow it can get so easy where your life just gets intermixed with your business. Like you think that the entirety of your life is your business, and your business is you. And that also bleeds into what the finances are. So you may end up just prioritizing the survival of your business, or you're only looking at the numbers of your business, but you're not looking at maybe the survival number for yourself, for your own quality of life, for you to be able to take breaks and to detach from the business so that you could think more, you could recharge, right? And I think for especially sometimes it's like the more passionate you are as an entrepreneur is the more that you can't detach yourself from that. And I think that is amazing advice from Rakua, that you have to figure out a way to distance yourself a little bit, look at your business numbers, but also look at your own numbers. What does it take for you to survive? And only by you surviving will you be able to help allow your business to be sustainable in the long run, right? It is not selfish to think about yourself and your own needs, and also your own team's needs financially, so that everyone can be taken care of, for the long run, right? This is not a sprint. We're not just trying to get through one challenge. We're trying to make something built to last, right? And then the other really good point I think you brought up, Akua, too, was just think about your clients too. I think something that Akua, you did was really smart was that that you kind of had different rates. You had different client channels, segments, different client segments that you were working with. So you kind of knew your numbers that like, okay, I might charge a more premium price for the certain type of client that can definitely afford it, and I'm providing a certain amount of services that are going to be more demanding and definitely worth that. But because I have a stable base of these type of clients, that would allow me to have a little bit of flexibility to maybe do a little bit more pro bono or low bono work for a different segment that also needs my services. And in this way, not only is my business sustainable, but also my life is sustainable, and that I can add value to both of these segments, in a way that we can continue that business, we can sustain that as well. And I think that is definitely a model for a lot of other social entrepreneurs here that you guys can consider using. Obviously, it's about solving a problem, right? Knowing your market, who you're targeting, and solving that problem and doing a really good job of it, but that you could be a little bit flexible in terms of figuring out how you can make those numbers work and how you can make that work in your own life, right? And then also, just on a side note too, something that I've also learned is that sometimes like charging a higher rate is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes charging a higher rate, a more premium rate, actually helps you bring in better clients because it helps you filter out people that are not serious about what you're providing, especially if it's a service-based thing. Like charging something higher helps bring people that are actually committed and that maybe actually have a really painful problem that they really need solved. And so don't be afraid, either don't be shy in raising your rates to something that makes sense to you. Just like what Aku is saying, like, and to be able to justify that and know that this is what I am worth. And yeah, I think for me, I think that was a big lesson because I was always afraid to charge a lot for my services, even though I knew that I'm worth a lot. My time is worth a lot. I put in a lot of time and energy into this. But actually, oftentimes, if you charge more, people also respect you more. You also get better clients. So don't be afraid of that. And then for all the ladies that are tuning in for this too, this is especially the case for you. I think women, by and large, undervalue themselves, underprice themselves. We're really good at negotiating for everyone else, if it's for our family, if it's for someone else on our team, but we are terrible when it comes to figuring out maybe what we are worth and our value. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't shy away from that. And yeah, and Ehab, I know that you kind of jumped the gun and told us a little bit about about volunteering, but is there anything else you want to quickly add on this topic?
Oh, well, one thing I would say, I'm still now in a learning process, and I think Aqua services would be the most fit for me right now because I'm learning about this topic right now. I can say what mistakes I done along the way. The model that works for me was always getting a good paid full-time job, and in doing voluntary work, society work, community work for less fees, and that's the model that I was doing. And I think it's not sustainable. And I have to think again about money. And now I'm reading books, I'm looking for YouTube, I'm listening to Akua, and I'm trying to see how can I start really rethinking my financial my financial and what how much I should charge for my services and how can I present my services. And I'm now in this point. But what I know, something that was not good, at least in my opinion, for me, is always applying for funding. And funding makes you like very independent. Sorry, dependent on the funding. So once the funding is away, you just stand there and say, what can I do? I don't have a funding. And then you become always someone who's independent, just depending on the funding. So you look for next funding and next funding. I mean, it's good if you get 40%, 60% of the funding, and the rest you have to generate. That's a good start. But relying completely on funding is catastrophic for the team and for the social work. That's my opinion, and that's my experience with getting grants always and relying completely on that. So yeah, I'm learning, and I was thinking we have to talk, Akua, about your work and how you exactly offer, because I think it's a great opportunity also for me to learn, thinking how to finance sustainability. Yeah.
Yeah, no, amazing. I think it goes right back to what we were talking about earlier about investing and what Aku was saying, that it's easy to just get distracted trying to chase after the next funding cycle, or in Ehab's case, like trying to chase after the next grant. And because it'll keep you afloat for however long and you think that it'll solve all your problems. But unless you really have something that solves a crucial problem and it's sustainable, all you're doing is just chasing after money and funding, and you're just burning through that cash. And that's not a great cycle to be in, right? So that's also something to keep in mind. I do think that there is value in grants, to get started. It's helpful just have a little bit of grant funding if you can secure it so that you can test out your initial prototypes and get your project launched. But the goal of that shouldn't be about trying to rely on and get more funding. It should be really taking advantage of that funding to figure out how you can make your own business sustainable. Right. So make sure you keep your eye on that, everyone. And the last question I have prepared here is about managing your team. So this is another huge challenge in itself about being an entrepreneur. And I know like there's probably a few of us here that are solopreneurs too, so you work alone, but regardless, you're always going to be working with people. You don't work in a vacuum as an entrepreneur, you're always working with different people. So this would also be useful for you. I often find it a little bit ironic too, in that so much of the kind of startup training that we often provide all over the world and PIM as well, like a lot of the training we provide is targeted for the students in college or university. And I understand this age group because you're at a budding age where you're mature enough, you're learning a lot of things, and that there's a lot of potential there. But the other flip side of that is that we're also kind of half expecting people like these students that have not yet graduated from university, have not had any substantial work experience yet, or necessarily any leadership experience in a professional setting to be able to launch a successful enterprise and to be able to successfully lead and manage a startup team. Like that is a huge ask for anyone. And so I just want to maybe ask the three of you, like what are some challenges that you've had working with like a co-founder, a partner, or anyone that like other entrepreneurs that you've worked with? What have you learned from there? And then what advice do you have for other budding social entrepreneurs as they're learning to become a leader and a manager of their own teams? Maybe Akua. We can start with Akua this time.
Sure. Yeah. This is such a great question. But I did want to add one piece to what we were speaking to previously, because I think it also relates to thinking about having a team. As you go for grants or as you get investment, even from VCs, that adds additional work to you, right? One of the things I'll hear from people who even run nonprofits is when they look at like their numbers or they're looking at what their team is doing, it's like, wow, like most of my people aren't even allocated to doing the problem solving or thinking about how to build product market fit. I have people running around trying to capture all this information for our investors and for the people who gave us our grants, right? And so once again, right, that reflection on, okay, having this outside investment is great, but recognizing once again, it can veer you away from actually doing the work of building a business that has customers, that has people that are willing to pay for the problem that you're solving. So I would say the key, I think, skill, the key thing that I think sets apart successful leaders from leaders maybe that have to drag people along, or leaders maybe that end up being burnt out, or leaders who maybe end up falling out of love with the problem they're looking to solve, is self-awareness. I think it really starts with having some sort of practice of reflection, some sort of practice of sort of checking in on all these different elements of whatever type of business you decide to build. And I think alongside having that practice to cultivate and continue to cultivate your self-awareness, I think a piece of it's just reminding yourself that leadership is a journey. I held a conversation last week. I call it like a roundtable. I do it every single month. And one of my guest experts talked about leadership being an odyssey. And I was like, I love that. I think it's so much better than even saying a journey, because an odyssey has ups, it has downs, it has dry periods, it has periods that are way too overwhelming. And so I think while you are constantly cultivating awareness, a piece of it's also like normalizing that there are going to be ups, there are going to be downs, there are going to be things that you don't know. There are going to be times where your people are going to annoy the heck out of you. But I think if you have that in mind, that hopefully will help to keep you moving forward if it's something that you decide you want to continue to invest time and energy into. Because a part of having that reflection practice might be that you get to a point where you say to yourself, well, actually, maybe this isn't for me anymore. And I think that's okay as well. I think that successful leaders also sometimes remove themselves or recognize that maybe, hey, I'm really great for starting things, but maybe to sustain this and really grow it, it needs a different type of leader. It needs a different type of human that has a specific focus or has specific skills maybe that I don't have. That's something I saw a lot, especially within the first role that I had, a lot of the first leaders that sort of came through and that were co-founding these platforms were not the leaders to take it to the next level. We're not the leaders to help build out really big teams, and that's okay, right? So that cultivation, that cultivating of your self-awareness will also hopefully expose some of these pieces. And it's okay sometimes to let go or bring other people in to potentially support you. I think the last piece, because I think there's so many different elements of thinking about leadership or your leadership odyssey that I could touch on. But I think one of the things that I would say, subconsciously, like I didn't even do this on purpose. I think I did it just because I'm a very frugal person. I think the initial people that I worked with would say I was cheap, but I would say I'm frugal. And the distinction I make there is simply that when I first had the opportunity to launch and run this online platform, I was told hire, hire, hire. And I was like, but I don't even know like how to monetize this. I don't even know what's really happening. Like, let me better understand this business. Let me better understand the clients. And then I'll start to bring people on, because I don't want to bring people on and have them sitting and like having nothing to give them. Of course, they're going to also do research and learn more, but I want to get to a place where there's a little bit of a foundation. And I'm really glad I pushed back, because I was able to build a team somewhat organically. And what we would just see is that after a bit of time where we got a little bit more information about the client, we knew how to better monetize it. Oh, there's all this additional work, and all this work can't be done by two people. So we need to bring another person on, maybe to support in this specific way. And so I think that that approach to growing your team, especially if you're bootstrapping, mind you, I had money and I said this, like I said, I am frugal. Like that is just unfortunately my mindset. And I would assume that many of you in here are probably more likely bootstrapping or looking for external funding. I actually didn't need external funding. I actually technically had the money, but I just didn't want to do it because there is also a cost of my time and energy as you build a team too. And so that's something I recognized. Once again, I don't know if I realize it or not, but I somehow recognize like, look, I know I have the money, but I don't have the bandwidth. Like I'm still in this myself. And so that's another thing I'd recommend that you consider as you're thinking about your leadership odyssey. Like, how can I continue to cultivate my awareness around my own relationship with what I'm building and the relationship with the people I'm also trying to bring into this, and really just making sure that as you bring people in, you have the runway, right? So you have the financial resources, but you also have the mental, physical, and emotional bandwidth as well. Because if you bring someone in and you don't have the mental, physical, and emotional bandwidth, it's going to be a waste of your money. Right? They're going to be here, but you're not going to be able to actually onboard them properly. You're not going to be able to actually bring them in a way that's going to actually allow them to contribute to this thing you're looking to build or this problem you're looking to solve. So that's probably where I would start.
That's amazing. Look at that looks like a huge place to start though. It's a lot. But I love what you're saying, Akua. I don't think you're frugal even. I think you're just strategic, and I think you have your priorities in order. Yes, queen. I think, yeah, I can't agree with that more. I think that just because, and this is the case with money, regardless, even in your personal life, just because you have it doesn't mean you should just go ahead and immediately spend it. You need to think about what you're spending it in, what you're investing it in. And it's true, like, yes, hiring a team is important, building your team is important, but you need to really think through like, what are these positions? Like who is, or what are the strengths that I need strengthened? And to think through all that, and to actually hire people takes a lot of bandwidth and energy. Right? So definitely think through all of those things. The other thing that I love what you said, Akua, is that it's also okay to walk away. It's okay to know like who you are as an entrepreneur, and what stage of a business or enterprise like you really are passionate about and best positioned to help support. Like there really are lots of entrepreneurs. It's kind of like the founders kind of like syndrome almost, where like you're just passionate about building something from scratch. So there are amazing people that just build from 0 to maybe 1 or 2. But from 2 to 4 to 5, it's a very different beast. You have to start really putting systems in place. You got to really build your team. And then from there, when you're scaling, that's a whole other level, a whole other different skill set that you need. And it's okay to accept and to know that you've done your part. You've probably brought it to where you're happy, and that you may not be the person to take this to the next level. And it takes a lot for someone to be able to gracefully be able to walk away from that as well, because a lot of people, you become so attached, like, this is my baby, I built this from nothing, right? But in the same way of like raising a child, I believe it gets to a point where like they have their own life, they have their own potential, they have their own journey, and you may not be the best person, the best position to help take them to the next level. And actually holding on is not good for you or them. And I think that's really a mindset that we need to keep in mind. And I think that was something that I also personally struggled with too. It's that um, you it's hard to let go for me personally. You really do get attached. You've invested so much. And it's hard to accept that, like, oh, I don't have the skills to really scale this. Maybe I'll just learn it on the side and then I'll be good enough to do this. As opposed to realizing, like, no, it's not something that actually brings me a lot of joy either. And there's someone else that's more excited about this, more skilled in doing this, and more capable of doing this. So it's time for me to maybe walk away, and so that I can refocus my energy on something else that can provide more value. So I love that. How about you, Andrea? Comments on this, like managing a team?
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree with what Aqua said about growing organically. I've seen some startups. I saw one here in Chile that grew so fast that at some point they had to lay off like 30% of the workforce.
Oh,
Imagine how painful that is for a company.
yeah.
And also, when you grow too fast, I think what you do is you build a very not healthy culture in most cases, because you don't have like clarity on what everybody's role is, and people need that to work well. So I don't know, you go into a lot of stress, and that culture of always being striving and really running. Everyone's running. I don't get it. I mean, I don't like that. But yeah, it can have a high cost. And well, if you're starting, maybe you don't need to hire people. Maybe some things you can outsource, like freelance. I don't know, be creative. Don't grow because you feel like you have to. Grow if you really need to, and if you can do it like in a healthy way. Another thing that I want to say is look for diversity. We talk a lot about diversity, but all of us humans tend to choose people to work with that are similar to us, that think like us or dress or talk like us. And I think when you're building a team, it's very, very important to hire people that are different to you and that have different skills than the ones you have.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's a lot of richness in that diversity. And also, like, don't be afraid to hire good people, like the best people you can hire. I think there's a thing here that we have to manage our egos, because sometimes people don't want to hire someone that's better than them.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to be the top dog here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that can be really, really bad. So, yeah, try to handle your ego and work with the best people you can. And also, some advice that I heard somewhere that I really think makes sense is like hire slow and fire fast. If you
Mm,
take your time to know someone you're going to hire, maybe put them on trial for a period of time, get to know them and train them. People need training. People need to know what they're doing before they do it well. So give them that time. But if you did give the time and they didn't work out, or they're not a good cultural fit or whatever, just let them go. Don't stay there for too long, because that time you could be better focusing your energy on something else. Sometimes I know it's hard to fire people. I know it is,
yeah.
but sometimes it's necessary, and as a leader you have to make those tough decisions at many
Mhm.
points. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Oh, well said. And I think that's just life in itself, right?
Mm.
Not everyone in your life, like in a way, like deserves to be in your life. Not everyone is adding value in your life. And even if it's like some relationships, some friendships, the loss of those are not always really a loss. It's like you have to be able to know when to let go and they're not the right fit, maybe in your company, but also in your own life, and so that you could reinvest that energy into something else. Yeah, definitely agree.
Even if you like them, because sometimes we hire
Yes.
people that are kind of friends or that we
Yeah.
really like, and it makes
Yeah.
things harder.
Oh, it
Yeah.
does. It's not personal, right? Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
we're just not a right fit. Yeah. Okay. Anything to add, Ehab, before we wrap up?
I will wrap up shortly in 1 minute.
Okay.
I would go back again to social organization, civil organization. When you're looking for a team of volunteers, I'm thinking in this scope. I look always for a mentor, someone who did this job before and can guide me through when I collect a team. Mentor is very important things. And I should not do all the mistakes that a mentor already went through. And I respect people time. And I recently ran something kindness always win. So not
Mhm.
micromanagement, not helicopter parenting. Kindness always win when you work for volunteer. And also I don't work with my close friends. That's my rule. I don't work with friends because I see always there is a threat of we get too much emotional about our work, so I don't work with my close friend. And yes,
No, it's great advice, especially the friends piece too. I often feel like it's because you're talking about money in a lot of these things, it's difficult. It's almost better to just be work colleagues first or like a co-founder that eventually become friends because you've gone through so much rather than someone you've had a personal relationship with that you then try to turn that into a business relationship. But yeah, I love the piece about kindness. Ultimately, like we are people and these things are values that are really important and we should keep that in mind. Okay, fantastic. Well, before we wrap up, can everyone here that's still on this call, can you please all do me a big favor and turn on your cameras? Because I would love to take a quick group photo. So Vicky, HM, Monsoon, Dicko, Tony, nice. Oh, thank you guys so much for sticking with us. So great to see all your faces. Hi. Monsoon, Dicko, Tony, Niema, HM. I would love to see your faces, please. Neo's got a little like sticker you got to take off your screen. Yeah, well done. Privacy matters. Okay, all right. Ting Ting, can you help us with a screenshot? I'll count down.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna take two. We're gonna take one serious one, and then we'll take a funny one. Okay.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Cheers. Okay. Did you get it, Ting Ting?
Yep, I did.
Got it. Okay. We'll take one more. It'll be a silly one. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. Awesome. Did you get that too, Ting Ting? Yes.
Yep, got it.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, as we wrap up, I want to just quickly share. We're running a little out of time, so I don't know if we have time for Q&A. But here's a contact info of our speakers. For everyone here, thank you so much for joining us today. Please screenshot this so you have a chance to connect with our speakers afterwards. And again, I have to say, I really wish I met all three of you earlier in my life. Where were you? Where were you when I needed you? But thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom, but also being vulnerable and sharing a lot of the challenges that you went through as well. It's not an easy journey. It is an odyssey, Akua. It really is. And then Andrea, failing with style is not always easy. So learning how to fail with style is also an amazing thing. And yeah, and I'll always keep track of my confidence matrix too. Thank you for sharing that today. You have, okay. And then last but not least, this is how you can get in touch with Pim. This is our very last public event for this year of 2024, but we have a lot of other really cool events in line that we've lining up for 2024, 25. Ting Ting actually is one that's going to help spearhead a lot of them. We haven't figured out the new name for them. Right now, the working name is Mentor Mondays. So that should get you guys a little bit excited. But either way, like please scan the QR code, join our LinkedIn, join our group, visit our website, or email us if you have any questions or would like to collaborate in any way. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here for our 10th anniversary and for making our very last event so special. Okay, we will share this recording on our website and over all our social media platforms. So make sure you follow us to view the recording. Okay. And then last but not least, a big thank you to my team. Big thank you for Ting Ting helping out in the background. But can we all just give another round of applause to all the speakers, please? It could be virtual. It could be virtual. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night if you're in Asia. Have a good rest of your day. For Yahab and Akua, it's like the afternoon, and then have a great rest of your morning too, Andrea, all the way over in Chile. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Take care. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.